Hey, so amazing. You see how they playing? Live wire, it's all about sports and entertainment. You don't want to miss it, so official like you never seen. Keep it going till the whistle blowing from the referee. Everything from highlights and stats. You know that we gotta run it back, whether on the field or the court. You know that this is where it's at. Subscribe, no delaying. This is Live Wire, sports and entertainment. Let's go.
All right, what's good, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Live Wire Sports Media. So we're gonna talk some WNBA news, and which I was waiting for this because Christina Williams, she has a podcast called In Case You Missed It, and she had Cathy Engelbert. Now she's been promoting it on X, and I was waiting for this because it goes in line of what the conversation that we had on Courtside Junkies podcast last night, and I was on there and we was talking about a lot of different things. We was talking about the situation with Unrivaled. We talk about is Cathy Engelbert in the WNBA complicit to what Unrivaled done, and I weighed into it because me personally, I don't think, I could be wrong, I don't think they're complicit, but I do think Cathy Engelbert, she knows, because Breonna Stewart says she knows that it was forming this league. And I think there's a lot of detail about it. And I said, one thing that I said is that Cathy Engelbert is the middle person. She doesn't run anything. Everybody that's over her from the NBA, Commissioner Adam Silver, they over her. They are her boss. They will tell her what they need to be done or how this needs to be done. Now, she could run the league, you know what I'm saying? But when it comes down to the CBA and the referees and all of this stuff, this falls on your commissioner. She has to take a step into this. It's her league, you know what I'm saying, regardless of who's over her. I do not, and I repeat again, the Unrivaled League is not strong enough, not powerful enough in taking down the WNBA. It's not going to happen. This league is not going to fold like a lot of us think or hope it does because of Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark's sole agenda is she wants to uplift women's basketball. She wants to pour into the WNBA. That is why I keep saying that she's not going to participate in Unrivaled. She's not going to abandon her dream of being in the WNBA just for a makeshift league that has their own agenda. Now, I'm going to get into this podcast with you, and then I'm going to stop it and break down some stuff and get my thoughts into it. Like I said, I've been waiting for this, so we're going to dive right into it real quick.
Have 7. Can you imagine last year's finals between Minnesota and the Liberty? Had that been able to go to 7 games? It went to our max 5 last year and was such an amazing going to overtime in the last game. So it struck me, and I've been thinking about this for many years, that we need to go to 7 games too. So the finals are going to be really exciting, and there's so much parity in this league this year. So I'm excited to see who even makes it through to the semis into the finals. And obviously in round 1, everybody gets a home game this year. So it'll be a 1-1-1 structure. That's what's different. We did have a 3-game last year, but it was 2-1. Everybody will get a home game this year, which will be great for the fans of both teams that get paired in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, and this playoffs will feature lots of historic firsts and storylines. But you mentioned the Golden State Valkyries, and this is an expansion team that's reaching the playoffs for the first time in its inaugural season, a WNBA first. When you think about this storyline in particular, what does it say about the depth of talent in the league today, particularly when it comes to the expansion franchises that will be coming in over the next few years?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are always skeptical when you bring expansion of our expansion franchises. So at the end of the decade with the addition, a lot of people are always skeptical when you bring expansion franchises in. It adds more rosters.
Okay, before I continue on, this is going to be very, very important because it's going to illustrate to y'all the growth of the WNBA and what their projected future for this league is. This is why I keep explaining to y'all that the WNBA is not going nowhere, regardless of how much money they have lost or how much they take. They have so many different investors. They have the backing of ESPN. Now they're going to have the backing of NBC. Now they already had the backing of Amazon Prime. You know what I'm saying? With Jeff Bezos, who's one of the richest people out there in this world. And then don't think that Netflix is not thinking about trying to get into the mix too. You know what I'm saying? That's why the WNBA, they might lose money, but they are banking so much on the back of Caitlin Clark because of what happened in 2024. This is why they're moving like the speed of light right now. A rival can't keep up. A rival can't compete with that. Now, can some of them players leave on rival? That's on them. But there are more players that can play. But the thing about it is, how are they going to illustrate this in the future? What are their game plan? And I just don't think, I think Cathy Engelbert is rushing so much to try to get all of this in place. She's not taking the time to really think about some of the issues that plague this league, especially for marking, the way the referees are, how the game is being played, overly physical, no disciplinary actions, no development league. There are so many things that this league needs to grow on to continue instead of just trying to dump so much teams into the pot when you still have issues within the league itself.
Spots to the total. We went from 144 to 156, and we're going to get up to 218 by the end of the decade with the additional expansion teams we announced. And it's important to balance that. And I think the Valkyries have proven with this incredible.
So if I'm not mistaken, she just illustrated that the players in the league has went from 144 to 156, and they planning to go to 218. Let me rewind that back a little bit.
About the depth of talent in the league today, particularly when it comes to the expansion franchises that will be coming in over the next few years.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are always skeptical when you bring expansion franchises in. It adds more roster spots to the total. We went from 144 to 156, and we're going to get up to 218 by the end of the decade with the additional expansion.
Okay, so my thing is this. If you going from 144, that's rosters, that's 12 players on each team, to 156, and then eventually 218, don't you think that in this conversation right here, you would say, hey, I need to add 13 to 14 players on there? If you look at all the hardship players that the Indiana Fever had, you could have easily moved from 12 to 14, and two of them players would have been on that team automatically, and then you would only have to use 2 hardships, not 4. Or had to sign somebody for the rest of the season. You could have brought them in and signed them and then still use hardships. It just don't make sense.
Teams we announced, and it's important to balance that. And I think the Valkyries have proven with this incredible playbook off the court and on the court that you can be successful in year one. And that's what we want for all of our expansion franchises. So obviously.
But the thing about it is Cathy thinking that, okay, the success of the Valkyries is going to be a blueprint for all of these other expansion teams like Portland next year and Toronto next year. That's not going to be the case because those franchises is not going to be able to have that level of success. And you got to think about it. If you run into a lockout, then the players that lock out, and then you decide to go on with the season and you get more players from overseas or the draft pool or whatever the case might be to put in that spot. That doesn't mean Portland and Toronto is going to have that same level of success as the Valkyries. The Valkyries kind of like was able to do this in this year because they wasn't competing with another expansion team. You got to think there's 2 expansion teams coming next year, and they're going to be competing for rosters. So you got to think a lot of these players on these teams now are going to be going to these rosters here, but you still have to add at least 13 to 14 on your regular roster so you don't run into the situation. There's no team in the WNBA had more injuries than the Indiana Fever and had to go out. And luckily, they was able to put it all together, kept themselves together to make the playoffs.
You know, the Valkyries didn't have a ton of huge names. They had some stars like Kayla Thornton and others, but, you know, they have just, I think Natalie and Ohema have just done an incredible job, and Jess Smith on the business side has done an incredible job. So, you know, kudos to the ownership team and the fan experience and the basketball and kind of game presentation that's going on at Chase Center, and the sellouts, the 22 consecutive sellouts in year one. Every game was a sellout. So really excited for that success and for that to be a roadmap for other expansion teams to benefit from and to succeed off of.
Commissioner, what are some of the other storylines that are exciting you coming into the postseason?
Yeah, I think just kind of the parity kind of in the middle of the pack. And there's so many great storylines coming into the playoffs here that I can't name injury rates as last year, but I know that doesn't fit things in sports. But
the momentum clinching a spot, but without their star Caitlin Clark,
I think you're going to see a really exciting.
Okay, now this part is coming up, is which I want to talk about, is the injuries. This is a very important part right here.
First round, probably our most exciting first round in our history.
Yeah, and this season in particular, several key stars have missed some games, and the Indiana Fever are on the path to make a postseason berth as well, clinching a spot, but without their star Caitlin Clark. When you think about the number of injuries this season and going into the postseason, how does the league continue to build the momentum when some of the star power may be sidelined?
Yeah, I've said this before. Injuries are it's one of the toughest things in sports, but the reality is you're already seeing it in the NFL. There's high profile ones in other sports, and it's totally unfortunate that we've had high profile injuries this year. Our data shows it's about, the same injury rates as last year, but I know that doesn't make anyone feel any better.
That part is a lie, because the injury rate last year was nowhere near what the injury rate this year. If you look at before the Fever started having injuries, New York already had injuries. New York had injuries. There was Lainey Hamilton was the first person on that team that was hurt. You know what I'm saying? Then it came down to Jacquel Jones getting hurt. Then it was Sabrina Ionescu. Then it was Stewie getting hurt. Satu Salvi's sister, she was already hurt. That's why they had to go out and get Emma Missamon, because of all the injuries. Emma Missamon probably would have never been on the New York Liberty if they didn't have injuries. Then you already had Caitlin Clark for the Fever. Then before then, you had to go out and get somebody like Eric McDonald to supplement that. Then guess what? Sid Colston went down. Then Eric McDonald went down in the same game. Then you had to go out and get what's the girl name? Lambert and Odyssey Sims. Then next thing you know, Sophie went down. No, then you get Chloe Bibby. You end up getting Chloe Bibby in that mix. Then Sophie went down. Then you had to get Ariel Powers. Then you had to get Shea Petty. So there were so many hardship players for them. Then you think about it. The Valkyries had in and out players. They didn't keep none of them. All the hardship people they signed, they didn't keep none. Then you look at what happened with the Dallas Wings. They started having issues. You know what I'm saying? No team had it harder than the Indiana Fever. And she sit there and say, you see it in the NFL and all. How you gonna use the NFL as a model when the NFL has a bigger roster than you? They have 56 players. We don't even, the WNBA only have 12 player roster, 12 player roster with no room to bring in players, no development league to bring somebody up. If somebody got hurt, that's already ready to go. Some of these people is home, sitting on their couch, watching soap operas, watching reality TV, whatever the case might be. Cathy Engelbert has no damn clue what she's talking about.
Better. But obviously we constantly work with players and team doctors and trainers and health staff and utilize data to ensure we're doing everything we can do to.
That's another line, because if that's the case, Caitlin Clark would have probably been already back this season, because her bum ass franchise didn't handle her situation well, and they need to sit here and say, well, they waited all the way to the end to get her revved up. Me personally, you should have been able to say, well, hey, if she's injured, she should be able to come back into the playoffs. You know, not saying, well, if she's out for the season, she don't has no opportunity, she's not eligible. You should make players eligible to come back into the playoff if they deem healthy enough. You know what I'm saying?
To keep our players from a health perspective, but they're incredible athletes on the court, and the game is really fast and physical. And, just I'm so impressed with, how they play this game and what they're putting on the court every.
That's the point right there. Physical. It's overly physical. It's not physical to a stand where you could be all right. It's overly physical. You doing too much. It's too much hand checking, too much pushing off. These women don't know how. I mean, for them to play in college and not using push off all that in the college, they get away. They do the opposite. It's like they forgot everything that they had played in college and play. It's like they're playing prison ball out there
every night, and the talent, the speed. I played Division I college basketball at Lehigh University, and I don't think I ever lifted a weight. We had no strength and conditioning. We had no nutrition, back nutritional aspects back then. And I think I'm just so impressed, and how much respect I have for what the players are doing day in and day out. So it's an unfortunate part of the game, but we think we've built, beyond one player or two players or five.
The thing about it is, if some of these facilities or whatever isn't having the opportunity to build new facilities, training facilities for these players, they won't even be in what they are right now. So the stuff that Cathy Engelbert is talking about is pretty redundant and dumb. She doesn't know. Like, she talking about she ain't had that. I mean, look at you. You probably about 89 pounds.
5 players or 6 players. Every team has to have a roster where people can step up and show up. And I think sports has shown that a lot of role players help you win championships. And I think Indiana making the playoffs, Golden State making the playoffs, they've had injuries. New York's had injuries. Almost every team in the league has had some significant injuries this year. So, but they've all persevered, and we're going to have a great slate of 8 teams, fighting for a championship.
Another area I think of concern was regarding the officiating this season. I know that's something that's talked about year over year. What steps is the league taking to ensure like the fair and consistent calls
Not a damn thing
are being made throughout like these high stake playoff games?
Yeah, I think, Christina, I smiled when you started that question, because I don't think it's just this year. I think every year everybody complains about officiating, by the way, in every sport. So, but that means people care. They care so much. And we hear
Okay, Cathy, if you think that fans and people care about the officiating, then that means you need to get off your ass and you need to do something about it. These officials sit here and do not make calls. There's no way that Paige Becker should get all the calls that she's getting. She's a rookie. Caitlin Clark don't even get half the calls, and she's in her second year. Aaliyah Boston doesn't get any calls. She gets more fouls against her than anything. Angel Wilson get all the whistles. Stewie get all the whistles. Brittany Sykes get all the whistles. It's no parity when there's meaning calls. People have to go out after games, get in front of the podium, and go off on referees, and then they get fined for it, because Sophie Cunningham got fined 3 times because she talked about the referees, and then she made a reference about Paige Beckers, and she got fined for that. So if you think there's a problem, and you know it's a problem, why not do something about it? Because you don't want to. You want this league to be barbaric, and play until somebody like Asia Wilson, somebody like Nafisha Collier, somebody like Breonna Stewart get physically hurt and out for the year, then you're gonna end up doing something. You're not gonna do anything to, well, Caitlin Clark's out. You're like, well, hey, you know what? Let's make an adjustment to this. You know what I'm saying? No, you don't want to do that. But one of these top star players that you coddle a lot, once they get hurt, you'll see the difference. You'll make a change.
the concerns from the ecosystem in our league, whether it's fans, players, coaches. We take it seriously. We understand there's frustration. Our game is constantly evolving. We just talked about the speed, talent, and physicality, and we recognize that, as leagues change and rules change and players get bigger and stronger and faster, and the officiating needs to change. So as our game evolves, we'll continue to work hard on officiating. We do have a thorough process. I didn't know this until I came into a league, because I was one of those complaining about officiating in all sports before I became a commissioner. But thorough process to becoming an official, extensive training and education, but also the accountability on a nightly basis. Every single game, every single play, call or non-call, is reviewed. There's evaluations, so teams have the opportunity to provide feedback. So we're working as hard as we can to make sure we're getting consistent officiating. But I understand the
Man, Cathy Engelbert is the dumbest commissioner I ever seen in sports. She sit here spewing out all of this lies in front of everybody and talk about they have a process. When these referees, you see the same referees all over. You probably only have no more than 5, 6. You don't even have 10 referees on deck. And you sit here, y'all review everything. Y'all don't review everything because there's all a bunch of calls that's be on the floor that these referees look at and they turn the other cheek. Asia Wilson did 2 over the backs on Leo Boston and Lexi Hall, and the referee sat right there and didn't do anything about it. And you talk about they review this and then they hold to a certain standard or responsibility. She's not watching these games. That's the point blank period. She's not watching these games. She's worrying about money somewhere else. She's not paying attention to what's going on in these games. Because if she was, she won't be sitting up here telling this bold-faced ass lie in front of everybody.
frustrations, and we hear them.
I'm curious about when the league expands to 18 teams. Will you consider possibly changing the format again to maybe conferences instead of the top 8 seed?
Yeah, it's interesting.
First of all, I don't even care about that. I care about getting a G League, getting a G League, getting a development league, expanding the rosters. I don't care about if the teams go to 18, because if you're not moving the roster or finding players to develop, it don't even make sense. You still gonna be in the same process you had before. When the league went to back in the day, when the league went up so fast to different teams, more teams, guess what? You didn't have enough talent to cover that, and the league folded. A bunch of teams folded. You going in the same direction now, and you haven't learned from the first time around.
Clearly
Of the WNBA, when you look back to when you first stepped,
our teams are all investing just because we have more games. Yeah, Christine, it's a great question and frame.
you've been able to see in your tenure as commissioner of the WNBA, when you look back to when you first stepped into this role, how would you compare the state of the WNBA then compared to now?
Yeah, Christine, it's a great question and framed really well. I can't be more proud of the growth that we've experienced. I have a mantra every year. Last year, it's the bold will win, everything must change. This year, because we had such explosive growth, we brought in 30 to 40 million new fans last year. So this year, it's sustain and gain. So sustain that momentum and gain off of it. And that's exactly what we've done. So we're riding an incredible wave of momentum. We're up across every business metric, but viewership, merch sales, digital engagement, you name it. Attendance, as you stated, that I think we have the highest attendance in the history of the league. And it's not just because we have more games, because there used to be more teams. So we're doing it with 13 teams in a 44-game season. So this is a period of hyper growth, and that growth, we know that that's not forever. Growth is never linear. Every decision we're making is focused on the long-term sustainability of this league. But again, you have to start with first, I think one of the amazing evolutions in our league has been, and I've admired the NBA for their global platforms and their percentage of players born outside the United States. So I think when I came in the league 5 years ago or so, we were 8% of our players were born outside the United States, and now it's 22% this year. So that's a huge international audience that we still have some work to do to make sure we're bringing in, that our games are provided in different languages, et cetera. So global growth is going to be the cornerstone of our league's future. And, the Toronto Tempo joining next year is a major step, but that is in Vancouver this year with the Atlanta Dream and Seattle Storm. We'll continue to bring WNBA to international markets. And one thing that was interesting, like our reach is becoming especially strong in China and other places in Asia and Europe. I mean, China, our All-Star Weekend drew 6.1 million unique viewers across the Chinese media platforms.
And that's because of Caitlin Clark.
So that was the number one most watched WNBA game in China. So we did the same thing a few years ago in India when we showed some of our games in the Indian market. So huge global growth, that we're looking forward to really, again, as I said, making these players into household names, household global names, not just domestic names. So, really good. And our players, we want them to choose, what they want to do in the off season, want them to choose what they do in season, where they play. And again, I think we offer such a great platform. Our games are available in 207 countries through all of our platforms, whether it's NBA TV or Amazon or WNBA Leap Pass or the local affiliates of media partners in countries around the world. So I think, again, enormous opportunity. And this is players' opportunity. I mean, Nike took Sabrina Ionescu to Asia this year. What a great opportunity for her to build her fan base, the Liberty fan base, and the league fan base, in places like the Philippines and Hong Kong and China. And I know a lot of our players hail from Africa. So, ultimately, do we get to that continent, but certainly low-hanging fruit in Europe. I mean, Christina, when I was at the Olympics in Paris, I said one of the best vibe games, fan-based games, was Belgium-France women's semifinal in Paris. I mean, it was an incredible show of support for women's basketball in those two countries' teams. So a lot going on there, but we feel we have the best players in the world here, both U.S. and international. And, we'll continue to offer them a huge platform here to grow their brands.
So ultimately, would you say that's something that you guys are looking to revisit in terms of not changing it completely, but finding some common ground with the prioritization rule?
Yeah, no, we've been working with FIBA and others. And I think, some of the leagues have accommodated and, our players need to show up, when training camp starts, because that's an important training ground to build culture so that they can hit the ground running when the season starts. And I think there's probably only a couple now that you're probably referring to, but I think for the most part, our players want to be in market to start the ground running. Our preseason games were the most watched preseason games ever. We made sure they were all produced. They were shown. Like this year without an Olympic year or FIBA World Cup where we could get our max 44 under the current CBA in. But there's a huge demand for our game, and you saw it with preseason games, and you saw it during the season with our most ever viewed ABC, CBS season, and our most attended season ever. So there is the demand there. So we want to balance that with the footprint and what's right for our players and player health and safety.
As a fan of the game, Commissioner, and you just brought up the preseason, are there plans to go to other countries to continue to have those preseason stints and exhibition games with different national teams around the world?
Yeah, we would love to do something like that. Again, it's an allocation of capital decision because it's expensive just to fly to these countries, let alone put on an entire, tentpole event. So we'd love to do that. That's what we're strategizing right now. And we'll use this all season to strategize next year with the FIBA World Cup. Not going to probably do that, but hopefully in 27, prior to the 28 Olympics, we'll have a great footprint to blow out maybe some global game strategy. But it can't just be like we're going to play a game here or there. It's got to be a strategy that's integrated with growing our players' fan bases, growing their brands. So you'll see us in the next year doing a lot of play.
The only way you're going to do that is you're going to have to get Caitlin Clark out there. That's it. You going to have to get Caitlin Clark out there. You can't just do it with Sabrina. You can't just do it with A'ja Wilson. Caitlin Clark has the biggest wide range of fan base, and you definitely need her at the forefront. If you don't utilize Caitlin Clark's star power, it's not going to work at all. Now, this is the part I was looking for the CBA. This is the part where I was looking for.
Accessible for fans or more affordable.
Yeah, it's certainly a balance. But on the other hand, when you've arrived and you're invested in et cetera. And now, man would say in any economic model, in order to fund all these investments and owners are making, and obviously paying the players more, which we'll do in this next CBA cycle, which I'm sure you're going to ask me about. But that's the reality. If you're going to build an economic model that's sustainable for decades. And remember, we're the longest tenured women's professional sports league in the country by double any other. And why is that? Because we've been very disciplined about how we're building the economic model here and the economic growth, not just to last for the next 5 years under some new CBA, but to last for decades, Christina. And that's our responsibility as a league and the team owners. And to do that when there's, high demand, you price out, our kind of core fan base.
Yeah, and you brought up the CBA, so I guess I'll go ahead and ask the question.
Figured I'd give you that.
Reaching the October 31st deadline, where do the negotiations currently stand between the league and the Players Association right now?
Yeah, our number one priority is to get a new CBA done that really balances and addresses the players' priority. We're all in on their priorities. We want to pay them significantly more, given the growth in the league, but we also need to support the long-term growth and success of the league and the teams and the owners. And we've been meeting with the Players Association throughout the summer. We'll continue until this gets done. We have many additional sessions already scheduled through the rest of the season and beyond. And I always tell people, I didn't play, there was no WNBA when I came out of college, but if there was, I want the same things the players want. That has not changed. We are going to significantly increase their salaries and benefits, but setting up this long-term sustainable economic model for everyone, because I think the players want that as their legacy too. And the negotiation process takes time, a remarkable amount of attention, detail, research, models. Obviously, we're forecasting where the league's going to go. We're in hypergrowth. That'll level off. So it really is an opportunity, I think, to shape women's basketball and women's sports for generations to come. And I think, again, we're hopefully on track to get something done and hopefully something that the players view is fair and our owners view as fair. And that's our role as the league, is to sit between those two constituents and make sure that WNBA is a business that people want to invest in and that our players are set up for success.
All right. So that's what I wanted right there. That's the point I wanted right there. All right. So you think about this. Think about this for a minute, what she just said. She said they want to cater to the players' needs. Now, so if you think about the previous discussions that they have had with these players, if you're willing to pay these players 4 times the amount of what they've been making, then what is the issue? See, I think the players are being more selfish than they have been, because the deal they probably got was really good, but they want more. You're not going to get any more that you already. You got to think about this. The WNBA is growing. The WNBA is growing. The WNBA has a lot of expansion teams coming in. So therefore, the money can't be where all just for the players. They could give a certain pie to the players, but they're looking at long-term, for the long-term goal for the league, because you got to think about it. The likes of Asia Wilson won't be in the league for a while. Breonna Stewart, all of these older players won't be in the league. So you got to look at the young generation that's coming in. So if you do a CBA for about 5 years, then you got to come back to the table, do it all again. If you do it for at least 6 or 7 years, then you have a stretched out plan to continue to plan for the future for this team, for this league. And then with the new media rights deal that's in place, I think 2.2 billion in place, there's no way that there's going to be a work stoppage completely if these people that's already putting money in the WNBA, the way Cathy Engelbert is alluded to. So that's why I said that our rival doesn't have a leg to stand on when it comes to the WNBA, because the WNBA is not going to crash and burn just like that. It's too much money involved. It's too much money behind behind this brand. Whether this product is not good, but it's too much money into it to see it just to anticipate to be destroyed and move on. There's too much money in it. They got to get their money back somehow. and you got one of the main persons that you could spearhead this new growth, but it still needs more because you're so far in the hole that you can't even fathom and get out of it. So, like I said before, man, the WNBA is not going anywhere. They're growing fast. They're trying to do things. I think the overseas thing is a good way to go. Do like how the NBA is doing. Start taking your top talent over there. Like I said before, if you need to start promoting Caitlin Clark overseas, you need to have the Fever play games overseas. Me personally, I would have her have a preseason game in Wembley Stadium, set up a basketball court there, have somebody from Brazil or whatever come over there and play in Wembley Stadium. Man, look at here. Wembley Stadium is the largest stadium in the world. And if you can have her fill that up with a blink of an eye. So you gotta have more. You can't not allow her because her brand is so big. If you was able to have Nike have Sabrina Ionescu, just think Nike is going to want to have Caitlin Clark in the forefront, especially when FIBA come and the Olympics come. They're gonna want to have Caitlin Clark because Caitlin Clark brand is coming out by the end of this year and next year, and Nike is going to want her to be in the forefront. It's not like you have to change rules in the game. You have to get this product in the WNBA better than it is. All of this backbiting, all of this selfishness, all of this physicality stuff has to go. The referees has to be way better than what they are because people are going to continue to tune off, and your ticket sales already dropped since Caitlin Clark has not played. That's why I say if there was a way to make her eligible to be in the league, boom. I mean, to be in the playoffs, you would easily make your money back up. So, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think about Cathy Engelbert WNBA. Her comments, like I said, this woman is all over the place, and she just got her hand in too much pots, and she needs to have somebody organize to make sure. She needs an assistant. That's what she needs. She needs an assistant because her brain doesn't look like it's functioning completely right now. Again, I know this is a long video, but I needed to get this out to y'all because this is very, very, very important to me for y'all to understand it. And I'm glad I was able to show y'all what was going on. So until then, like, comment, subscribe, Livewire Sports Media. This is your Thursday Cool Down edition, and I'm out.
Hey, so amazing. You see how they playing? Live wire. It's all about sports and entertainment. You don't want to miss it. So official, like you never seen. Keep it going till the whistle blowing from the referee. Everything from highlights and stats. You know that we gotta run it back, whether on the field or the court. You know that this is where it's at. Subscribe, no delaying. This is Live Wire. Sports and entertainment. Let's go.